Good morning. Good
Welcome.
morning. Today is the last day of October, October 31st, 2021. And so tonight is Halloween, All Hallowed Evening. And our talk today is when two or more are gathered. And I'm going to begin with a reading by Ernest Holmes, our founder of religious science. And it starts with a quote from Malachi 2:10. Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us? And what he says is that Arthur Compton in The Freedom of Man tells us that science has discovered nothing that contradicts the idea of a universal mind or spirit of which all people are offspring or emanations. It would be impossible to converse with each other unless there were a common medium, or, as Emerson said, one mind common to all people. It is impossible to depart from this divine presence, to be separated from this heavenly Father, which is the parent mind. Since God is everywhere, wherever we are, God is. Today, I know that there is one spirit in every person I meet. Realizing that there is one Heavenly Father, I know that there's common benefit among all humanity. There are no aliens, no strangers. The divine image in me cannot be separated from the divine image in others. I see God in everyone I meet, and the spirit that is within me responds to the spirit within them, for we have one source. The only way to know God is to be like God. And while this may seem discouraging in our present state of evolution, we should remember that we have but started on an eternal ladder that ever spirals upward. And so it is. So, what do you think it means, Bob, that the saying we have attributed to Jesus in the New Testament, where he said, where two or more are gathered in
There.
my name, there am I also.
Yeah, I haven't got a clue.
Well, we interpret in my name as in
Yeah.
my nature.
What I was thinking about when we talked about that this earlier in this morning, we talked about this over coffee. So we have our best conversation. If you could just listen in, would be our coffee conversation. I think when two people are gathered together with an intention, it opens up a divine space of creation, a divine space of possibility. And I think that divine space of possibility is more than a space. It's an opening for all things that are like or connected to the intention. And so in a kind of way, when two people are gathered together with an intention, it's like having a library card to the possibility of everything,
Because of the one mind.
the one mind. So why that's so critical is because when we put two people together, there's more than the two people. We are more than the sum of our parts. And I was thinking earlier about the ion lithium batteries that we use to power our cars, which are the same batteries we use to power our watch. The difference is when more batteries are gathered with the intention of propelling a car, it suddenly becomes possible to move a car. It's the same battery, it's the same energy, but when there are more than one connected together with an intention, what we see is a huge amount of power. So using that as an analogy or a metaphor for how we are together, we are actually like batteries, sources of power, sources of energy. And when we get together, that source of energy is multiplied and it reaches out. But most importantly, it reaches out to the entire universe, not just to the person we're talking to. And I know you've all had the experience at one point or another of thinking about something and then suddenly discovering it everywhere because it opens the space for that. It's kind of like when you buy a car. Whenever we buy a car, we think there's only a couple of them out there. And then I swear that every other car is just like the one you bought. Not quite as nice, of course, but it's just like the one that you bought. I think,
You see them
I
everywhere.
had no idea there were so many. But it's not only that the brain then begins to look for things that are like what is on your mind, but when we have more than one mind looking, we now have all of that energy that's out there, which is so important. So we're not alone.
Exactly. And, Ernest Holmes got this idea of the one mind by reading Emerson. Um, Ralph Waldo Emerson used to be the most read writer in all of America. And I doubt that that's true anymore. But when Ernest Holmes, our founder, picked up the book, his brother was a psychologist and had gotten a good degree in psychology, and he had a book on his coffee table by Emerson, and he picked it up and read it, and it's just his mind was exploding. This is one of the things that Ralph Waldo Emerson said, by the way, he was the third generation minister in his family, or seventh, I think there were 7 generations
Wow.
of ministers in his family. And I kind of left whatever congregation they were, and he ended up becoming
Unitarian.
Unitarian, starting the Unitarian Church. But anyway, this is what he said. I behold with awe and delight many illustrations of the one universal mind. I see my being embedded in it as a plant in the earth. So I grow in God. I'm a form of him. He is the soul of me. And that quote just sort of says what we believe. Ernest Holmes incorporated that. And guess where Ralph Waldo Emerson got it? He was one of the first people, because it had just become printed in English, to read the Indian Vedic, their sacred texts. And in there, that's really where he got the idea of this one universal mind. And he thought it explained God in a better way than the projection of a human being as a male old king on a throne in heaven.
Yeah, that was a big loss for a lot of us.
So,
Suddenly we were
but
no
that's what
longer the
happens
one.
when we get together. That universal mind is with us too. And we think of God also as love. God is love. This one mind is also one love. And so when you get together, there's that flow of love and caring possibility. And when you make it your intention, it certainly happens to a greater degree than when it's not your intention.
I think paying attention to the difficulties that we have with relationships and ironing those as best we possibly can out and cleaning up that material allows us to access a greater space in mind and thought. And part of what I'm talking about too is my own experience of my resistance to uh, responsibility. Anybody ever have that where you have a responsibility, but you're not real excited about it because you feel alone? And one of way back a long time ago, I found myself paying some of my bills late. And when I would pay my bills late, I realized I wasn't paying them late because I didn't have the money in my account. I was paying the bills late because I resented having the bills, even though I'd borrowed the money. And so, I mean, I was grateful to have the gift, but I wasn't grateful to pay it back. But there was a breakdown in the relationship between the gift that was given and the people that were giving it to me and me. This wherever two or more are gathered. So when I got together with that idea in mind, I said, what I need to do is start paying my bills in person. And for 6 months, I went to every single bill that I owed, and I either paid in person, or if I paid by check, I wrote a letter to say thank you. My relationship with money changed. My relationship with the people that gave me money changed. And not only that, but when I would walk into the bank, people thought I worked there because 5 or 6 people would always greet me and say hello and how are you today, Bob? I developed a relationship. So I became something more than a debtor, something more than a debt, something more than just a person alone with a debt. I became connected to a community, to a family. And I think we often look at our relationships as if they're debts or they're things that have to be worked out, as opposed to joined with and connected to, where we can access that greater energy, that greater truth.
Yes, with this pandemic, many of us are just sort of venturing out.
Yeah.
It's been so dangerous, and inertia comes into play. The law of inertia states that a body in motion tends to stay in motion, and a body at rest tends to stay at rest. Now, it's referring to heavenly bodies. You could take it to your own body as well,
I think yours is pretty heavenly.
or any body. I mean, it's talking about anything with a wheel, but it also applies to us. And so when you're used to going, you tend to keep doing that. But if you get used to staying home and not going out, it sort of takes an effort to go out. But we need each other. We need each other. So I recently read a story about a senior man. We relate to senior people, and no, we're much younger than that. But at any rate, we relate. And he was with his son in the bank. He went there to transfer some money, and they waited for an hour. And his son was getting so impatient. He said to him, "Dad, why don't we set up your bank account online? So by internet you could transfer your money just like that, and you wouldn't." And he said, "Why would I want to do that?" And he said, "Well, you wouldn't have to stand here for an hour." And his father thought about it, and he said, "Well, since I've been standing here, I've met three friends that we exchanged greetings and shook hands, and I know the teller, and I enjoy seeing him." And he said, "Yeah, but Dad, you could order groceries, and Amazon delivers everything to the house. You could just save yourself so much time." He said, "Well, since your mother died, I really enjoy getting out and shaking hands and talking to people and making friends, and so I don't think I would like that at all." And so his son thought about it and decided to try increasing his contact with human beings. So a woman in his parking lot had a flat tire. He helped her change it. And he just started taking every opportunity. He volunteered for some community volunteer work. And he just realized there is value in that human connection. And I need more of it too. So, so interesting lesson for us.
So I think what we could do is we could reach a little further. We could reach a little deeper into each and every relationship to allow that energy that's there, often dormant, to be expressed and to be shared. And as we do that, when I write a note of thank you to somebody I don't know who I'm paying a debt to, whether it's a bank or a credit card, I create an energy, a field of energy that supports me in a larger way. And so part of my invitation today is dig a little deeper in every relationship, go a little further to say thank you. That just saying thank you every time you meet somebody, for the opportunity to be with them and to share space and to share whatever it is you're sharing. I met a school teacher the other day, and I told her, I said, "Thank you for your service." And she said, "What?" I said, "You're in huge service." And she said, "I never thought of it. I just thought it was for the frontline workers." I said, "Aren't you?"
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. And so I think we need to look at, if we can, how many people's service are good, how many people are in service to good that we don't recognize as such. And then it comes full circle back to us, because when you recognize someone else as good, you're also recognizing that which is in the mirror that is you.
Exactly.
And that's I think we're not getting the recognition. We're not giving the recognition because for a long time, as you were saying, we have been more scared of getting sick than we have of being appreciated or admired or admiring or appreciating.
Right. We used to even this hot humid summer, we stopped going out to exercise. And so I called my next door neighbor who I really like and I never see. And I told him we live in a condo. I mean, we're right next door. So I called her and I said, "I know you like to walk and I want to start walking. And I know you like to walk at the beach and so do I. What would you say about becoming walking buddies?" And she said, "I think that's great." So we've been there, we'd go every other day. We've been twice now. And her husband came over and told me she's so happy that I called her. So, but I really like her. I'd like to have her as a close friend, but we have neither one of us reached out. So,
Just reaching out and connecting. It's so many different levels. We have one member who comes to our center through a Zoom who doesn't live in this community. But I wake up in the morning and I get pictures of, was it New Mexico?
yes, it is New
Yeah,
Mexico.
I get pictures of the New Mexico sunrise. I get picture of coyotes. I get pictures of, so I don't just live here now. I live in New Mexico as well. I get pictures of cats from a person who has become an avid, I think she's probably been a cat person for a long time, but now I have cats without any cat hair. And, and, uh, and I'm not allergic to those cats, but I think it's amazing as we increase our connection at a deeper level, we've actually increased our world. We're seeing more, being more, doing more, and connected to more. But that energy then I find out feeds them as well.
It does. And I have another wonderful quote about that. Howard Thurman was an African American minister, theologian, um, philosopher. And this is what he said about when you meet strangers. He said, love is to meet a person where they are in consciousness. Guess it doesn't have to just be a stranger. But I repeat it. Love is to meet a person where they are in consciousness, but to treat them as though their spiritual potential was already actualized.
Mm.
So you're meeting them where they are. And I know you do this at work. You're meeting them where you are, but you are recognizing that they are far more than that.
That is so huge. But we come full circle back to, are you recognizing who you are at the highest level or at the lowest level or at some other level in between? Maybe we need to level up our own appreciation of who we and what we are. We often think
Mm,
we are giving something, therefore we have value, rather than we have value, which allows us to give something. We have value that allows us to expend energy, appreciating the value in others. We can't see in other people what we don't see in ourselves and in our own world.
mm.
So every acknowledgement of beauty, of love, and of light and of joy is an acknowledgement of our inner soul, our inner being. And that is, I think, as spiritual a mission as we can be on, is to be truly aware of that divine interaction of energy, that divine expression of energy within us and within other people. In essence, whenever we get to somebody, whether meet somebody, whether we mean to or not, it's party time. It really is. The possibility for it
Mhm.
being an inner party is there. I was at work the other day and I met a supervisor for the first time, and I hadn't met her before. She was just walking through and I said, excuse me, what do you do here? And she said, well, I'm an evening supervisor. And I said, the light in your eyes is so incredible. It's just, I'm so delighted to meet you. And well, what happened is one of those eyes began to leak. And I said, what's wrong? She said, nothing's wrong. It's just that you have no idea how important that is. You have no idea what that means to me. And she said, I'm so glad I came over here. And I said, I am too. I got to see the light. And I think when we look for the light, we find it, but the person that we see it in often then gets to find it as well.
Yeah,
It's our,
that's
do
great.
you, is that what you want to do? I'd like to be a light finder. And I think it's great when we do that.
Well, one of the things we wanted to address a little bit is this that it's all hallowed evening this evening. And speaking of other people, I was telling Bob that my memories of Halloween were we always went with a bunch of our friends. And that may have been because there's safety in numbers. We didn't go with an adult, and that there's safety in numbers. And you're with Halloween, you're also facing fears. Life can be scary, so you're facing fears and making it fun, laughing about it. But it's also nicer to do with a group of your
Mhm.
friends. And this All Hallowed Evening started with people much like the Mexicans do with the Day of the Dead, which is November 2nd, of thinking about and honoring their loved ones who have passed. You're passing, Bob. You're passing in and out of the picture.
It's
And
all right.
so this, but while we're honoring people, this is a good time to also think about honoring our loved ones who have what made their transition or died, however you want to put that. We don't believe anybody really dies, but that they make a transition to their other spiritual state. And so it's as real as it is with you now. You just don't have your body. But nevertheless, so I think they can actually hear you when you think about them and thank them and honor. Again, the treat them as if they were already totally spiritually actualized, because in spirit they probably are.
Well, I think
And,
it's funny
and
that
even if they had big failings in this life or limitations.
as spiritual people, we've come to believe that people live an eternal life. And I didn't realize until recently that the banks and IRS think the same way. Uh, when you're gone from this plane, they don't see you gone. They still see the bill. They still think that you owe it, so. But I think it's just time for us. It's always time for us to look for that wonder and to expect to see it in places that you wouldn't. Uh, I was looking at a video on YouTube, and they showed part of the swamp with regular vision. I've just disappeared. There I go. Whew, that was scary.
I don't want you to make your transition yet, Bob.
Oh my God.
I'm going to hold on to you
Yeah.
here.
I went to the light just for a minute. And things they were pretty good there. They have HBO up there. So, but there was a kind of a swamp scene, and you see the picture of the swamp, and you're looking around. It looks like a lot of grass and overgrown grass and water. And then they put on some special glasses, and you see an alligator there. You didn't see him before, but it was the glasses allowed you to filter out all of the extraneous light that was blocking you from seeing the alligator. And so the purpose of this very long story is that there's something in the pond we haven't seen because we haven't had the right lens. And when we have the right lens, the lens of possibility, the lens of love, the lens of kindness, the lens of curiosity, we're likely to see more than if we don't. And I remember taking people on nature walks years and years ago, and they would complain about how long the walk was, or why the trees were in the way of the walk on the path and all of that, as opposed to stop, look, join, connect, feel. When are we going to get to the end of it? And so many of us, without realizing it, spend a lot of our time on a walk waiting to get to the end of it, and then we don't want the end to come.
Right. You also mentioned that people would, as soon as they would name something, they would quit being interested.
Yeah, it was
observant.
interesting. And what I would take people on to looking at birds, and they would say, "What kind of bird is that?" It's a red-tailed hawk. Okay, next. So I changed. I said, "I don't know. It looks like a bird of prey." It sure does. You think it's a hawk? It could be. And they would look at it longer. They would look at it until we named it. And which is really interesting. And I learned in a class that I took on naming, which who would have thought there would ever be a class on naming, but in mental health, we have classes on everything. And this professor was saying that naming is a way of feeling that we have some control over a thing. That when we name it, we feel like we've owned it. Now I've named it. I know what it is.
And that's true with diseases also.
Yeah, yeah. And the truth is, all you've really done is named a point of view or a perspective or a current state of interest or curiosity. You haven't really named the thing because, and another workshop we did years ago, the trainer was saying a chair is not a chair in some places. It's only a chair in places where people have gotten accustomed to sitting on it. In other places, it could be an artifact. It could be any number of things. And so what you look at is we give meaning to things. We also take meaning from things. And we have to decide what kind of meaning and value will we give to things. So this whole talk today is really an invitation to be more present for the possibility of more and greater in that divine space that is there available for all of us. Like Rumi said, there's a place out there, a field out there. And
out beyond the
right and wrong,
something
yes
of
and no.
right. I'm going to find that quote.
Yeah. I think it's out beyond the
Out
space
beyond
of
the field.
the field, of the space of
No.
right and wrong. There is a space, there is a field, I'll meet you there. Which is a very, he so succinctly says it, even though I don't remember it.
He says it so succinctly, we
But
can never
he says
remember
it
it.
so beautifully, though, that it's beyond,
Here it is.
beyond the reason.
Out beyond ideas of
right
right
and
doing
wrong.
and wrongdoing. There is a field.
I knew that.
I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about.
That's exactly what we're talking about today. I think he sums it up. You even
He
got it
does.
highlighted.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you were going to do this.
He talked, well, I know we didn't talk about that. He talks about, I think he's talking about people criticizing other people.
Yeah.
Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing. I'm right, you're wrong. We love to do that. Anybody who's not like me must be wrong. And he said, beyond that, if you get beyond right doing it, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about.
So I'm calling that the divine space of possibility, where we can meet and literally infinite possibility exists. And what we know is that even if you aren't so sure of that, we know a lot about the field of impossibility. And unfortunately, we spend way too much time in that field of impossibility. I cannot count the numbers of times that people have said to me, well, you can't do that. You don't, that'll never work. And today on CBS Sunday morning, the nationally televised program that actually has an international scope, they're going to show one of my pieces of artwork in between the segments. And they've done this now in the last 3 weeks, I think 3 times. And that was not a possibility until I reached out and made a connection with somebody I don't know in New York. And that person still doesn't know me, but now we have a relationship, and now my art is being seen. Whenever 2 people are gathered together, my art might be a part of it.
That's true.
But it couldn't, there was no way that could happen. I live here in Florida. I don't know this person. She's in New York. I don't know her.
The internet can connect people
Yeah,
too.
but it could be a connection where you can be critical and judgmental and not connect, or it could be a place where you make a connection. And so I'm delighted to think that my work is being seen regularly on national television, but I'm more delighted with cultivating a relationship with another person in another part of the country who has an appreciation for my heart and soul and what it means a lot to me, and vice versa.
So it's time for us to close.
Oh, I don't think so. We could go on. I think let's make this a marathon.
Let's end with a closing prayer. And stay present. You keep disappearing here.
Okay. It's our background.
It's the background. Okay. Yeah, it's true. We could float away. Okay. So let's go within and know the truth of each person. We know that there's one power, one life, one mind, one God, one love, and it is everywhere present. It is present within each living creature, each living being. And we know that as we know that, we allow it to expand in our lives and grow and share it with others and all beings.
For this, we are grateful. For this, we are excited. For this, we say yes. And together we say,
And so it is.
Now we're going to play a piece of wonderful music for you.
No, first we're going to invite people to support our ministry. And this is our website. Let's see, that's not even, yes, it is showing right here. CSL, standing for Center for Spiritual Living, palmbeaches.org. And I know many of you give regularly, at a regular time when you donate, and we so appreciate that. But if you'd like to donate now, you just go to this site, click on ways to donate, and then it shows you 3 different ways that you can give. Some of them can be scheduled to give ongoing, or monthly or weekly or whatever you would like. And we just want to thank you in advance.
Without you, we wouldn't exist. You are the critical part of all of this.
So I'm going to stop that share. And now I'm going to share the music.
You're going to stop the recording.
Oh, we're going to stop the recording first. Yes. Let me put my glasses back on to do that.